My name is Michael Lopez. I'm a author, speaker, consultant. I live here in Sacramento, California, and my business name is really just Michael J. Lopez Consulting. But I'm a solopreneur, though I have a number of business relationships that help me deliver large transformational projects for clients all over the world, really across industries. I've been a coach in various capacities my whole life. I coached sports for years, and so while that's not exactly what we're talking about, I think the coaching orientation, I was sort of raised by great coaches as an athlete. I coached kids and young adults from a pretty early time after my football playing career was done. So I've always had a coaching orientation, and then during my consulting years with other companies, I think my kind of coaching led style always lended itself to the way I delivered for clients. But it was really just in the last 2 year and a half when I started my own company that I finally got my formal coaching certification. So it's sort of a long overdue process to kind of really formalize what I think has been a pretty natural orientation for me for most of my life. I started last year. So I started my company in October of 2023, and I started with them in January, December, right after I went through, and I just went through the sort of ACC certification for the first level. Coaching is what I'd call a feature of my business. It's not my core business. I tend to do larger consulting projects. I do a lot of speaking. I just released a book, so that's another kind of path that I've taken. So it was important for me to have the formal skill set, and so I started with the ACC. We'll see where I go from there, but that's where I landed. I think it's really a couple things. I think my own experience being coached by great coaches is a big part of that. And again, it started as a young athlete, just having coaches that took an interest in me, that maybe they were taking a different approach in the context of a team sport, but understanding the role of a coach, the role of feedback, the role of perspective, the role of great questions, the role of expectations. All of that, I think, has just such been a big part of my identity, my personality. And so I think then translating that into the work I do for clients, it's the power of a great question and helping people in their own journey. It's one thing to hire a consultant to tell you the answer, but in a lot of cases in the work that I do, which is very transformational in nature, I want people to find their own answers, because I know that we own what we create. And when I come up with the idea, meaning the client, when the client comes up with it, they're more attached to it, they're more committed to it, they're more likely to implement it. And so my job's always been to build a framework around people for them to discover their own insights and creations. And so I think I just learned that in many ways by trial and error. And then, as I went through the program, I actually learned a lot of new stuff that I should have been doing the whole time that I never knew about. So it was really great timing. I learned some really important skills that I was probably faking more than anything, or maybe doing without a real understanding of why I was doing it. And so I think that providing a more solid modern day coaching foundation was just really, really critical. The other thing it did was really raise my awareness about when I had my coaching hat on versus when I had my consulting hat on. And there's times for each of those. And I think I'm much more deliberate now about when that is and how I'm showing up. So I think it added a lot more intentionality to the work that I do. And then I think it just, a lot of people out there call themselves coaches these days, and there's a coach around every corner. And while I think that's great, generally speaking, I think there's something to be said for people who've earned the certifications and gone through the training to credentialize them to really serve that role. I worry sometimes that people call themselves a coach, but they don't really know what that means. So for me, those things have been just very much a return to basics kind of skill set that's amplified what I was already doing and made me even more effective in the role. I think a lot of people, number one, that call themselves coaches, and I get hit up by all these people all the time, or I see them on Instagram and all these places. Um, Number one, I think those individuals have a framework in mind that is more about telling the client what to do than about helping the client uncover their own insights and wisdom. And so it's they have a program is what it really is. They're not a coach. They're selling a program. And yeah, look, maybe that program's perfectly fine, but I think that's the first big distinction is, coaching is about helping people discover, not about telling them the answer. And so I think that's a really big distinction. Um, I think the second thing is there are some real behavioral skills that you need as a coach, in terms of listening, in terms of questions, in terms of holding space, in terms of understanding the hierarchy of what people are experiencing in their different circumstances. And I think for a lot of coaches, if you've never had that, you don't maybe know what to look for. um, you don't really understand maybe what that individual is going through. If I'm a fitness coach or I'm a nutrition coach or I'm a, pick your coach, everyone's got an angle. You might not have all of that other training that wraps around it. And I think the last thing I just mentioned, that, a lot of coaches they have an angle, maybe an area that they're specializing in. And again, I'm not saying that in a disparaging way, but I think a real coach doesn't need to be an expert in your problem. They need to be an expert in the fundamental skills of coaching, in which case we can apply it to anywhere in your life. And so I think that's just a distinction that I see quite a bit. I mean, it's just like raising your kids, right? When they do something that reflects their growth in the journey that they're on, those are tremendously rewarding moments. And it's funny, I still have in every coaching call or even in client sessions where I'm leveraging my coaching persona, I always walk into it with a bit of butterflies. Like, I don't know where this is going to go and how this is going to go. But when you get to the end and you see that individual in whatever way that they've managed to gain enough insight to take them to the next step, that really does, it feels good in terms of what, they're experiencing. It feels good to know that you've been a part of that. Um, and so for me, it's just really that those small moments of independence, of growth, of wisdom that come from people who have done the hard work of kind of exploring, whatever it is that may be going on for them in their life. So I think I can be a little bit provocative at times in the sense of being willing to maybe nudge or give direct feedback, and I don't mean like insensitive feedback, but direct feedback. Maybe what I'd call maybe a more challenge oriented approach. As someone who kind of lives with an athlete's mindset, I always believe that on the other side of your struggle is a version of you that you just can't wait to meet, right? And so I think I've always been willing to break the rules a little bit and help people move in ways that might be uncomfortable but really really important. So I've always been willing to kind of do that. I do that for myself. So sometimes I'll at least label it, hey, can I offer a suggestion? Can I be a little bit provocative? Can I, offer a challenge so that I'm at least letting people know that that's my orientation? But I think it's just a part of my own DNA that if I didn't do it, it wouldn't be authentic to me either. So that comes out from time to time. The first thing I think is to view it really as an act of service. And certainly we get paid, we're making money. I'm not suggesting it's, charity or philanthropy, but I do think if you're a service oriented human being, then coaching is something that might really resonate with you. Um, that would be the first principle. I think the second principle is to be willing to practice and understand that it is a skill set that you need to continuously participate in and grow yourself. It's not just about setting up calls and kind of listening and asking occasional questions. It takes an emotional energy that you should be thoughtful and diligent about. And so I think it's not just a label, right? It really is something that comes with more than that. I think the other thing we talked about it in a bit plain speak is there's a lot of coaches out there, and there's a lot of people selling the easy button, and there's a lot of people with slick social media and all these things that really cater to, I think, many people's natural reaction to follow the shiny object. And I think if you're a coach that's really focused on doing the hard work, it's sort of it's not glamorous all the time, right? It's a lot of starting small. It's a lot of dealing with smaller problems. It's you're not coaching the CEO of company XYZ right off the bat. You're sort of building up into that. And so I think it's about patience as well and understanding. And then maybe the last thing I'd say, you mentioned it, is I know when I went through the program, you learn certain fundamental skills and do's and don'ts, and those are important. But I think it's also about finding your own style in the coaching experience, and knowing that you've got to be authentic too, right? And what does that look like? Are you someone that has the ability to push, or you want to tweak a little bit of what you do? And that comes through repetition and trial and error and getting it wrong sometimes, and all of that. So I'd say that's the other thing is, don't be afraid to make it your own in the ways that are still resonant with the core principles of coaching, but authentic to you. And that's part of the fun. I would ask someone who's a coach what their experience has been like. And I think that's a great way to start. Certainly, the folks from our program were really generous with their time in terms of answering questions, reaching out to programs, interviewing them. There's a lot of new programs now. I didn't know about this one until I kind of found it through another resource, and so uh, there's a lot of places to go get really high quality training, and there's different price points for that. And so I think it's asking questions, doing your homework, reaching out to a coach. And then the other thing I'd say is it's also a bit like a good liberal arts degree, in the sense that you may decide you don't want to coach as a primary profession, but like me, the skills are translatable in so many ways in your life. And so even if you just think about it from the standpoint of, how can I learn to be a better listener? How can I learn to be more empathetic? How can I learn to hold space and ask good questions to be better for the people around me? I mean, you'll never regret that investment in yourself. And so I really view it as, it doesn't have to be your career. It can just be a really strong foundational skill set that serves you in so many other ways. Rewarding really has been, I think I said it earlier, it's just been great to give to folks in ways. And let's be frank. I mean, we get something out of it when we know we've helped somebody, right? We get the butterflies and the dopamine hits and all those things that go with the satisfaction of a job well done. But I think when you hear somebody say thank you for helping me through that experience, that's what it's all about. So I think rewarding has been the best word to describe it. I've just released a book. It's called Change: Six Science-Backed Strategies to Transform Your Brain, Body, and Behavior. And what's funny is, in the back of that book, or there's actually a chapter, I talk about 3 questions that'll change your life, and they are questions much like my coaching orientation, right? It's about the power of a well-placed question, and then your ability to really answer that honestly. And the book is about the science of change and what happens to us when we set goals and pursue goals and give up on goals and start again, and all of those experiences. And I think for me, I would ask people if they're interested in coaching or in change, the concepts are very applicable, because it really is, coaching is about giving people and uncovering the tools for their own growth. And they're growing because they're either struggling with something they want to stop, or pursuing something they want to gain, right? And that's all about change. And so I would say, please check out the book. It's available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all the big places. You can find a link to it on my website. There's a workbook that goes along with that. That's a great coaching resource as well, to if you want to kind of write along as you read the book, you can write down some goals and kind of use some of the frameworks in there. But yeah, I would just encourage people to take a look at that. I do have a few coaching clients as well that I take a handful of, and I'm always open to talking to people if they're looking for a coach. I sort of do it on the side, maybe a bit more of like individual work, but it's work that I want to keep doing. And so if someone's interested in that, I'd be happy to reach out. There's a million ways to contact me. You can schedule 15 minutes on my website and send me an email and all that stuff. Yeah, so my website is a great place, michaeljlopez.coach. All of my social links are on there. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. I'm active on Instagram, and I now have a YouTube channel, Michael J. Lopez 9, which has some videos that I've been doing. I've started a little podcast on LinkedIn every week with some other folks in the Top Voice community, which I'm a part of. So yeah, starting with the website's an easy place to branch out. If you search on LinkedIn, I'll be easy to find, and same with Instagram and that sort of thing. I'm not as active on X. Facebook, I am a little bit more of my kind of life altogether. But yeah, those are great places to start, and I would encourage you to go there. Just want to say thank you to the folks in the program and to all the instructors and my classmates, and it really, it is a program where you give to each other. And it's only possible because of the work that those folks do. So super grateful. It was a great experience, and just want to say thank you.